welcome back. I'm excited to introduce Michael Sorrell, president of Paul Quinn College, to speak about the responsibility we as educators have to take risks, to focus on students always, and to be relentless in our commitment to do the hard work to change our civic and education systems to better serve all students. It's called Big L leadership. A former White House staffer under Bill Clinton, President Sorrell brought a bold new vision to Paul Quinn College, focusing on academic rigor, experiential learning, and entrepreneurship. He's on Fortune's list of the world's 50 greatest leaders and the only Texan on that list. When President Sorrell took the helm of Paul Quinn in 2007, enrollment had been declining for more than 5 years, and the college was on the verge of shutting down. He bolstered admission standards, stepped up recruitment, and famously turned the football field into an organic farm that feeds the broader neighborhood as well as the Dallas Cowboys. For these accomplishments and others, Time magazine listed him as one of 31 people changing the South. The award list goes on, but in an effort to save our collective self-esteem, I'll just leave it at that. But let me share that I've been part of a post-secondary network of organizations for the past 3 years that Michael is also a part of. And during that time, his powerful but humble voice has always spoke to challenge us to keep students at the center of our thinking and not to be satisfied with timid approaches in the face of dire needs. I've learned a lot from him. I've been inspired by his words, and I hope you are as well. So take it away, President Sorrell, and show us what it means to step into this moment and lead with courage. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to see you. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you all today. I will return some of the kind things that Brian said about me and say these about him. I have always enjoyed being in his presence. He is someone who clearly is very gifted intellectually, but has found ways to engage people in a manner which helps them never feel left out of the conversation, to feel as if their ideas have weight and have merit, and is just someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And so I am very appreciative of the opportunity to visit with you all today and to just be in his presence yet again. I am thrilled to be here. I want to talk to you today about this idea of Big L leadership. I also want to apologize for my background because, as you can see, we're in my office at the college, and during the pandemic, we actually have been working incredibly hard. And so that does not include cleaning up the back picture. So you are getting what life really looks like in my office. And I hope that's okay. But I plan to talk to you all about Big L leadership in the context of education. And I'm still going to do that. But I want to include something that is particularly disturbing that is taking place right now, that is the antithesis of Big L leadership. As you may know, I live in Dallas, Texas. Paul Quinn College is in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. And our governor yesterday decided to open up the state 100%. Now, in most normal environments, you do not meet failure with a course of action that is absolutely, without a doubt, going to lead to more suffering and more hardship. You choose paths that put people at the center of your decision. And people, not profits, people, not politics. Texas was already not a successful example of how you manage this pandemic. And now we are being asked to put our children and our families at even greater risk because the mask mandate has been pulled off the table. Social distancing has been pulled off the table. All these things, and the response is, well, we trust people to make the decisions for themselves. That's not Big L leadership. This flies in the face of Big L leadership. And I think about what it was like to manage a college for a year in a global pandemic, what it's like to have to deliver the difficult choices in news to your students, to tell them, no, we will not have an in-person commencement last year, even though for so many of you, you are the first members of your family tree to walk across the stage and receive a degree. No, you're not going to have the opportunity to do that in front of all of your loved ones. No, we're not going to have in-person classes. No, we're not going to play basketball. We're not going to have parties. We're not going to do the things that mean so much to you, even though 85% of you are Pell Grant students who are going back to environments that are extraordinarily difficult. But this decision to be virtual is the right decision because it's hard to look people in the face and make a decision that you would only be making because you were thinking about the money, or you will only be making because you are afraid of what people would think of you, or you are only making because you do not possess the courage to tell people the difficult truths and live with the consequences. That's leadership in the context of what we should expect. And so as I prepare to talk to you about Big L leadership, we are going to start that by framing this with an example of failed leadership, of little L leadership, of the type of leadership that people will never sing songs about with respect, joy, and glory. Stories that will be told because of the suffering that will follow. 500,000 Americans have died because of the way that this pandemic has been managed. 500,000 people died without proper ceremonies to celebrate their lives, without having their families be able to hold them, love them in those final stages. 500,000 people died who did not have to die because we refused to make decisions based on science, based on rational thought, based on good judgment. Now, I'm not here to give you a political speech. That's not what this is. I'm not criticizing someone because of their political affiliation. I am criticizing leaders who do not put the best interest of the vulnerable at the center of their decision-making process. We have to love something greater than ourselves. We have to be selfless in our decision-making. So let's talk about the 4 great keys of what it means to engage in Big L leadership. The first is dream no small dreams. Be courageous. Be people who stand up to the tyranny of the majority. Be people who look down the line and ask yourself, is this all that we can do? Ironically, Texas was not always a place of small L leadership. We used to have leaders like Lyndon Johnson who pushed forward a Civil Rights Act, even though he knew the cost politically would be tremendous. We had people like Barbara Jordan who asked the question, when do any of us ever do enough? We had people who understood the importance of looking upon the landscape and daring to dream of something bigger, something better, something greater. That's the first step in a Big L leader, is someone who has the courage to do what is right. At Paul Quinn College, we have a set of values. They are the 4 L's of Quinnite leadership. We tell our students, leave places better than you found them. Live a life that matters. Lead from wherever you are and love something greater than yourself. We then tell our students to embrace our institutional ethos, which is we over me. The needs of a community supersede the wants of an individual. But we also have this character test, which says choose the harder right over the easier wrong without apparent regard for self-interest. Those are our standards. And with those standards, they allow us to dream bigger dreams. So the first step is be courageous, dream bigger dreams, be people who are willing to pay the price to do what is right. Be people who are willing to lift people from where they are and inspire them to the places that they can be. Teach them how to dream. Teach them how to walk. Give them voices. Be there with them as they learn to use their voices. And then for always, always encourage them, applaud them, cheer for them, but teach them to be bigger than they've ever thought about being themselves. First goal of being a courageous leader, first goal of being a big L leader is be courageous. Number two, rise to the occasion, be bold. When we were faced with this pandemic, we had a choice to make. We could just go along with what everyone else or the majority of schools decided to do and pretend that this was something that was going to be easily fought. We knew differently. We were one of the very first schools in the country to send our students home. And when we sent them home, we asked ourselves, when do we think we can safely bring them back? All right, we understood what we were dealing with. We trusted the science. We read a report from a set of researchers at Cornell University that talked about how residential colleges were the perfect breeding ground for the spread of COVID-19. We knew that it would be extraordinarily difficult to successfully secure our campus perimeter, keep our students safe, keep our staff safe, and not take extraordinary steps. So when we went down the path of extraordinary steps, we asked ourselves, if we were going to send people home for 18 months, essentially, because we did not see how we could bring people back to campus without effective testing and without a vaccine. Without those things, and we thought, what's the fastest that those things could probably be ready to go? We thought it would be fall of 2021. And we said, if we're going to do this, then let's take the time now to completely reimagine our institution, to address our underperforming areas, and to bring our students back to something far greater than they ever would have dreamed of. And that is what we are in the process of doing. When our students return to Paul Quinn College, they will come back to an institution that has built the first 2 new buildings in the last 40 years. They will come back to an institution that has partnered with 2 separate educational providers, one to create an international baccalaureate 6th through 12th grade with our local school district, the other a charter school, KIP, which is a national charter school, to build a high school on the campus. So they'll come back to 2 new high schools on this campus. Number 3, they will come back to literally almost every building on campus having been renovated. They will come back to us clearing brush to create a pathway around the campus so that students can now have a clear walkway and experience. They will come back to the mural project, which is turning our outdoor areas into public art facilities and scenarios. They will come back to an honors college, an urban scholars program, 2 new graduate degrees, the first graduate degrees in the history of the institution, and they will come back to brand new roads. In short, they will come back to an experience that will make it plain to them that while we may have been apart, we never stopped working for you. We never stopped putting your best interest at the fore. Oh, by the way, we're going to demolish the existing dormitory because once you start upgrading things, you have to keep going. You can't ask people to come back to that which is no longer acceptable. You keep moving forward. So all of these things, because we dared to take a look at this scenario that we were faced, a global pandemic, and dream something bigger, dream something better, be bolder in our actions. Number 2, in being a big L leader, rise to the occasion, be bold, or as Teddy Roosevelt used to say, get in the arena, be the men and women of the arena. Don't sit on the sidelines and talk about how people who are in the arena are actually doing the work. Do the work. So number 2, be bold. Number 1, be courageous. Number 3, the third way to be a big L leader is to embrace the better angels of your nature. Be men and women of character. Let me say that again. Embrace the better angels of your nature. Be men and women of character. Be individuals who have the ability to choose the harder right over the easier wrong, even when you can get away with the wrong. And the way we tell our students that you do this, quite simply, we say, listen, it is easy to make the right decision, when the bright lights are on you, and you will face public ridicule. You will face the scorn of others for you failing to be people of public character. But what do you do when the lights are off, when you can get away with the wrong and the wrong benefits you in a way that may come at the expense of others, but advances your cause for at least a short period of time, because karma will come back and get you. So as you do that, you have to be people who say, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to make the right decisions, not for my political future, not for my professional future, but because here and now, the people who I am entrusted with caring for, the people who may not have voices, the people who may not have hope, those individuals who count on me, the silent suffering souls who count on me, I'm going to do right by them. Big L leaders know that the constituency of the neglected, the constituency of the disenfranchised, the constituency of those individuals that no one has ever fought for, at least not consistently and aggressively. Those individuals, the ones who may never write you campaign checks, the ones who may never write you, a check for to name a building after you, those individuals need you too. And to be a person of character means to care for those individuals who may never be able to do anything for you. Big L leaders understand this, and big L leaders act on behalf of those individuals. Be that type of leader. So number 3 is be men and women of character. Number 2 is be bold in your actions. And number 1 is to be courageous. Number 4 speaks to your ability to be creative. It speaks to your ability to be entrepreneurial in your thoughts and entrepreneurial in your actions. It speaks to your abilities to be visionaries. Babson College is one of my favorite institutions in America. And at Babson, they are famous for entrepreneurship. They are the best entrepreneurship college probably in the world. And that saying that you heard me say, be entrepreneurial in your thoughts and your action, comes from Babson. It's their mantra. And it doesn't speak to building businesses. It speaks to building a better life. It speaks to being creative in how you envision your future. It speaks to being a visionary, because being entrepreneurial means that you can see a different tomorrow, a better tomorrow in your future, and that you have the fearlessness to chase that, right? Because entrepreneurship is scary, because there isn't a path. When you create something, there's not really a well-worn path to succeeding in that space. Instead, that space is fraught with challenges and with, quite frankly, in some cases, danger or great risk. But it doesn't mean that you don't chase it. It doesn't mean that you don't dream something that allows you to look upon the horizon and see a better tomorrow. People without vision perish. Leaders without vision aren't leaders. Maybe at best they're caretakers, but more than likely, they're uninspired souls who care nothing more than about their own self-benefit. You can't be a big L leader if you don't have a vision of where you want to take people, of what you want people to become, of where you want to go. I think about what it's like being the descendants of people who fought for their rights in this country, being the descendants of enslaved people, and knowing that every day I had ancestors who got up and were forced to go work in the fields with no compensation under the most brutal of conditions, to suffer like that. But every day they believed that a better tomorrow would come. They dreamed a different dream. They, through their spirituals, through their relationships, through their souls, they believed they could envision a day where their ancestors would be free. If they themselves were not free, those that came after them that shared their genetic code would be free. The courage to dream that dream under those conditions has always inspired me to dream the biggest dreams I possibly can, because quite simply, I'm sitting in an air-conditioned or central heating controlled space. I don't have to do physical labor if I choose not to. I have engaged in the pursuits of the mind. My ability to dream has to match the ability of the people whose shoulders I stand upon, because their dreams were so big. How can our dreams be small? So big L leaders are honest and true to the history that they share, to our common history. They know that this world was not built by small-minded people. It's built by people of ambition, people of courage, people of character. It was built by people who dreamed in color and dreamed of big L accomplishments. This world was built by big L leaders, but it can be destroyed by small L leaders. And so when you see people who are incapable of seeing the value in someone who does not share their race, does not share their religion, does not share their gender, does not share their view on things, those are people who are threatened, who are insecure, who essentially are not just small L leaders, they are small P people. And you definitely don't want to be a small L leader, but I promise you, you do not want to be a small P person. It does not work out well for you. So when we look at the four main points of being a big L leader, we know you have to be a visionary. We know you have to be a person of character. We know you have to be bold. And we know that you have to be courageous. But let's talk about some bonus points that you also have to be. You have to be unselfish. Selfish people destroy this world. They destroy the character, the tenor of our communities. They must be rooted out, because those individuals inspire behavior that's not good for any of us. You also have to have the ability to sit back and reflect and ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? Let's put the governor of Texas to that test. Did he ask himself, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm returning to normalcy far too early? Only I think it's 18% of my state is actually vaccinated. So what if I'm wrong? What if I bring far more suffering? And am I willing to take that risk? Is that the most responsible thing to do? Also, being a big L leader means having to understand that you have to take care of yourself. Leadership is tricky, and it's also intoxicating, because you can fall in love with the praise of the masses, right? I remember when I was a high school basketball player, when I was a freshman or sophomore, when it became apparent that I was going to be pretty good at the game. My coaches came to me and told me something that I have always tried to remember. They said, never believe your own press clippings. On the days where they're telling you you were terrible, you were never that bad. And on the days they are saying that you're great, you were probably never that good. The truth is in the middle. Stay humble, stay even keel. Never, ever, ever forget that. And so when you think about that, when you think of it from that perspective, you realize that one of the greatest qualities of being a big L leader is humility. It's the ability to see yourself in context. It's the ability to laugh at yourself, the ability to be compassionate, the ability to simply know that you're going to make a ton of mistakes, But in the process of making mistakes, you're learning and you're evolving. And be gentle with yourself, be forgiving of yourself, be human, and be transparent. Now, let's go over the lessons of Big L leadership. Number one, be courageous. Number two, be bold. Number three, be a person of character. Number four, be a visionary. And then there's the extra credit points, because after all, I am in education, and I may not want you to believe that I was obsessed with grades or concerned about grades, but I do like my extra credit points. So here are some extra credit points. Be unselfish. Never forget to ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? And take care of yourself. We are living in a time that is stressful, that is filled with pressure, that is going we're going to pay for this era for a very, very long time because of the trauma that we all have experienced. Recognize that trauma and go get the help that you need, that you may not want to admit that you need. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for the invitation. I want to thank you for sitting there and listening to this, but I also want to thank you by leaving more than enough time to answer your questions in a sincere and thoughtful manner. So what can I tell you? What would you like to know?
Is your camera on?
Great. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for both the kind words off the top and sharing your thoughts there about Big L leadership. I really love what you laid out. A couple of questions. One was something that I was curious about. You mentioned loving something bigger than yourself. And one of the things was always like to do when you get a chance to talk with different speakers we invite to these events is turn that back around for you. So can you share with us what's something that you love more than yourself? Oh, looks like we may have lost Michael due to a technical difficulty. I can't quite discern on my end, but it looks like we have, in fact, yes, we have lost him. So we can all be hung waiting for an answer. I'll have to get via email when it looks like he's going to be coming back in here and reconnecting.
I am not sure what just happened.
Yep, that's okay. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, perfect. It's good to see you. Thank you for the words and remarks. And I was saying that, you mentioned, as part of your talk about loving something bigger than yourself. And one of the things I'm always, curious to turn some of these reflections back around to our presenters. So what is something you could share with us, that you love more than yourself, that has really driven some of your work and motivation to do the things that you're doing?
Sure. So something that many people do not know is that 11 years ago, no, 12, almost 13 years ago, I think that's right. I suffered something called a sudden cardiac death. I had a cardiac arrest and actually had died and had to be resuscitated. And I wake up in a hospital. And I don't know if you are an Iron Man fan or a Marvel Comics fan, but there's a scene in the first Iron Man where Tony Stark wakes up in the cave with wires coming out of his chest. And I had my Tony Stark moment, right? Like I wake up in a hospital, I've got all these wires, and everyone that I love is looking down on me, which I would tell you there's probably a time where that's comforting. That was not that time, right? And they explained to me what happened. They told me that I had a cardiac episode and that I had to be resuscitated. And my first thought after I get done with a string of F-bombs, because apparently when you suffer trauma like that, for me, I don't say a prayer, I just start cussing, right? Once I stop cussing, I remember thinking that we were going to win at Paul Quinn, that I would now spend the rest of my life in the service of others, because the Lord doesn't save you to humiliate you, and he doesn't save you to be selfish. And so for me, what I truly love is I love the opportunity to fight for those individuals that don't have enough people fighting for them, to fight for the causes that I believe in. And, to love something greater than itself is to love people who might never have the ability to love me back, but it doesn't mean that they don't deserve a better life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that personal story. I appreciate it. We had another question come in. You mentioned towards the close, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of different things personally and professionally and trauma. And as we think about being big L leaders during these particular times, what are some things that you've seen about how to continue to motivate people, whether those are colleagues at the college there or others that you work with, while also being seen and recognizing their humanity and what they may need in particular moments. So that sort of challenge and support dynamic there.
No, it's a great question. I think people really benefit from authenticity. I think people benefit from, so let me back up and say it a little bit differently. We romanticize leadership and we romanticize who our leaders happen to be. So we think that they never cry. We think that they are always strong. We think that they're always at their very best. And that's unrealistic. I think the greatest gift that you can give people is a window into who you really are and what your life is like. And so for me, I am transparent, and we talk about these things, and I give people space to be their honest selves, and then they feel no repercussions for it. So, this has been a hard year. Every week I have an all institution call, and all staff call, and we get on and we turn on our cameras and we go through the business of the institution. Now, we always have all staff meetings, so we just move them from, in the boardroom to the to Zoom. And some meetings, we don't talk about school business. We just talk about how everyone's doing. And everyone gets a chance to go around and talk about how they are. Like, what are you afraid of? How are things coming? And that space to just be honest with no judgment, to say to your peers, I'm struggling, and then to have your peers lift you up. We are blessed at Paul Quinn. We have, knock on wood, we have gone through this entire pandemic, never had to cut people's pay, never had to, lay people off because of the economic aspect of it. And we haven't been able to do that because we have this $1 billion endowment. Our endowment is a rounding error, right? I mean, it is not the stuff that dreams are made of yet. But we have been blessed, we think, in part because we work so hard to bless others. And I think just giving a window into who you are and how you lead and not expecting anything in return other than their honest best effort, I think that's how you do it.
Well, thank you, Michael. And I'm going to need a few minutes here to close some things out for day one, but personal appreciation for your joining us and your kind words to all of us as a network. Certainly been inspirational. We'll be thinking about you down there in Dallas and wishing you the best. Hang in there and look forward to connecting as we continue to move forward in our shared work. So thanks again so much for coming.
Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
That's right. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
So as we get ready to wind down, I want to do two things here to bring our day to an end. First, I want to have an opportunity to share a word cloud with you here in a second or two that's going to come up and give you a sense of the words that people submitted and talked about and used, the conversations that we had about scaling success that took place this morning in our earlier breakouts. I hope that you keep these words and terms at the top of your mind as you reflect on the day. Momentum, data, mindset, faculty, equity. These certainly resonate with me and the themes that I've heard throughout our sessions on day one of this event. I also want to remind you that if you haven't already, to check out the network page on the platform and to schedule some one-on-one time with your colleagues. There'll be a 2-hour window at the starting here at 2 o'clock Mountain Time that will run for 2 hours for you to use this platform to connect with people. 2 hours tomorrow morning before we get started with our event. And then certainly remember, we have a 30-minute window in the day 2 schedule for you to connect with your colleagues. I also want to flag that all of the resources mentioned during today's sessions are available on the platform. And as we bring ourselves to a close here on day 1, just a quick preview of tomorrow. We'll be hearing as our kickoff plenary speaker, Dr. Estela Ben-Simone, who will be talking with us about how we can best support students with a particular emphasis on the necessity of us focusing more acutely on our work. Thank you again for all of the participation that we've had in today's event. We really look forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for day 2 of the 2021 Strong Start to Finish Learning Network convening. Thank you all so much.